There was always something unspoken about what really went down behind the scenes. A kind of quiet tension wrapped in laughter, wrapped again in shadows. Hal Linden, now 94, has finally pulled back the curtain on what really happened during his years on Barney Miller. The long hours, the last-minute rewrites, the tensions that simmered beneath the surface. But even more shocking? The decision that could have made him a multi-millionaire, and why he turned it down flat. Before any of the fame or late-night filming marathons, he was just Harold Lipschitz, a music-loving kid from the Bronx. The youngest in a tight-knit Jewish family, his father, Charles, ran a small printing shop that barely stayed afloat during the Great Depression. Yet it was in those modest beginnings that Harold discovered a lifelong passion for music, for stories, and eventually, for the stage. He honed his skills at Manhattan's High School of Music and Art, mastering the clarinet, then the saxophone, all while playing in symphony orchestras before he was even old enough to vote. But life, as it often does, had other plans. While studying business at City College, hoping to understand the entertainment world from the inside, he performed in dance halls, balancing spreadsheets by day and jazz solos by night. Then came a simple bus ride that changed everything. Somewhere between Philadelphia and New York, he spotted the word Linden on a water tower. The name stuck in his mind. Harold Lipschitz didn't sound like someone destined for marquees. Hal Linden, though? That had a rhythm to it. Clean, smooth, memorable. He took it as a sign. And just like that, a name was reborn. Then came another twist of fate. In 1952, drafted into the U.S. Army and stationed at Fort Belvoir, Hal never put his clarinet down. He played in the Army band, clinging to music like it was oxygen. One evening, a fellow soldier invited him to see Guys and Dolls in Washington, D.C. Sitting in that dark theater surrounded by strangers, something lit up inside him. It wasn't just the music. It was the stage, the life, the pulse, the story. That was the night Hal Linden knew he didn't just want to play music. He wanted to be the story. The road that followed wasn't paved with red carpets. For 10 years, Hal was Broadway's invisible man, always present, never center stage. He was the guy you called when the star called out sick. He rushed across Manhattan juggling scripts and roles like a magician. His kids teased him. "Dad's bringing home the understudy bacon again." The fridge was often half empty, but the dream stayed full. And then, in 1958, lightning finally struck. After a backstage fallout, Hal stepped into the spotlight in Bells Are Ringing. No time to rehearse, just instincts and adrenaline. The next morning, his name was in the New York Times. Finally, the city had taken notice. Still, the applause didn't guarantee permanence. Broadway can lift you up and toss you aside just as quickly. After a string of small wins, he found himself in the oddest corners of show business, singing jingles, voicing foreign film dubs, and performing in industrial musicals, corporate-funded spectacles never meant for the public. In one surreal role, Hal played a dancing carburetor. Yes, that really happened. Then, in 1971, came a break that felt different. He was cast as Mayor Rothschild in a struggling musical that nearly fell apart. Directors walked out, scripts were gutted, but Hal stayed. And when the curtains finally rose, the crowd erupted. 10 minutes of thunderous applause. One Tony Award later, and Hal, at 40, stood on stage and quipped, "It only took me 20 years to become an overnight success." The room laughed, but he meant it. That same year, an audience member watched him silently. Producer Danny Arnold. No congratulations, no handshake. Just quiet observation. 2 years later, when ABC needed a lead for a new sitcom set in a police precinct, Arnold told them, "I've found our guy." No audition, no heads up. Just a role handed to Hal. Captain Barney Miller. Barney wasn't your usual sitcom lead. He wasn't brash or wild. He was calm, thoughtful, a man who could find order in chaos with nothing but a raised eyebrow or a dry quip. Hal saw him as almost a rabbi-like figure, wise and gentle in a storm of absurdity. Real-life cops connected to that deeply. Decades after the show ended, officers would still salute Hal on the street, saying the show got it right. It felt honest. It felt real. But that realism came at a price. Unlike other sitcoms filmed in a single evening, Barney Miller required a grueling 2-day shoot, sometimes dragging until sunrise. Scripts changed last minute. New lines appeared during scenes. Some episodes started filming without an ending. The chaos was constant. Yet Hal thrived in it. Because underneath it all, the goal was pure. Create characters who didn't just serve jokes, but who felt like people. Messy, funny, complicated people. And somehow, amid all this madness, Hal also found time to speak to the next generation. On Sunday mornings he hosted Animals, 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 a children's show where he didn't dumb things down. He mixed biology with mythology, facts with wonder. It wasn't a gig, it was a mission. Even after being bitten, scratched, and sneezed on by wild guests, he kept showing up. Kids, he believed, deserved something better than cartoons and canned laughter. There's something haunting about sitting in the same seat 7 years in a row, hearing names called out that aren't yours. Hal Linden knew that sting all too well. Despite being the backbone of one of the most beloved and critically praised sitcoms of the era, he walked away from every Emmy ceremony empty-handed. 7 nominations, 7 polite claps for someone else. It wasn't about the gold statue. It never is, not really. But about recognition that felt just one breath out of reach. In a town where validation is currency, it became one of Hollywood's more curious legends, how the man who led Barney Miller never took home the trophy everyone thought he'd already won. When Barney Miller debuted in early 1975, it defied everything audiences expected from a police show. It wasn't about action. It wasn't about flashy villains or heroes in pursuit. It was about the waiting, the drudgery, the odd rhythms of real police work. Most of the series took place in one bleak, gray room, a worn-out squad room tucked inside a New York precinct. There, a group of detectives dealt not with shootouts, but with paperwork, misunderstandings, and the strange parade of humanity that wandered in daily. And somehow, it felt electric. The authenticity was startling. Real-life cops said it nailed the job in a way no other series ever had. They weren't watching a glamorized version of their lives. They were watching the grind, the unpredictability, the comedy found in chaos. For years after the show ended, people still called Hal Linden Captain. That's how deeply the character and the series sank into the public consciousness. But what made Barney Miller revolutionary wasn't just the structure. It was the soul of the ensemble. Each detective brought something startlingly unique to the table. Ron Glass played Harris, the stylish intellectual with dreams of becoming a novelist. Max Gale's Wojo was a lovable ex-Marine with more heart than tact. Then there was Yamana, whose delivery was so dry it could crack concrete, and whose coffee was famously terrible. Gregory Sierra's Chano was fire and compassion rolled into one, bursting with raw humanity. At a time when television largely served up flat, stereotypical characters, Barney Miller offered fully dimensional people, flawed, complex, and unforgettable. Then came the episode that broke every rule. The Courtesans aired during the first season and pushed the envelope further than anyone expected. In a bold, blink and you miss it moment, Wojo made a quip about needing a loan, with the implication he was considering hiring one of the women they'd just interviewed. It was a line that dropped like a bomb. The network branded the episode with an X rating, a move nearly unheard of for a sitcom. But instead of backlash, something incredible happened. Viewers flooded in. Ratings soared. That one risky moment didn't hurt the show. It saved it. That moment signaled something deeper. Audiences were ready for television that wasn't afraid to walk into the gray. The show kept that momentum, tackling issues with honesty and wit. It featured one of the first recurring gay characters on a sitcom, handled not with mockery, but with nuance. In one poignant scene, Wojo, confused rather than cruel, asked a gay man why he didn't try harder to be straight. The man's calm, heartfelt answer wasn't interrupted with a laugh track. The show let the moment breathe, and viewers felt the weight of it. Behind the scenes, though, the laughter came at a price. Filming Barney Miller was grueling. Long hours, endless rewrites, constant uncertainty. Hal Linden and the cast weren't just performing, they were enduring. They started at dawn and often didn't wrap until the following morning. They weren't just acting out fatigue, they were living it. Bonds formed not just from collaboration, but from sheer survival. Hal's connection with Abe Vigoda was layered. Vigoda had a tough reputation. Some called him difficult, especially over contracts and money. He even walked away from the show once, but Linden never turned his back on him. Their respect was unshaken. With Ron Glass, it was something different. It was forged in exhaustion. Glass would later recall how brutally hard the days were, but that they shared a kind of unspoken camaraderie. Linden admired Glass's poise, especially in the chaos. Then, the heartbreak hit. Jack Sue, beloved as the deadpan Yamana, was diagnosed with cancer during season 4. He kept showing up, kept delivering jokes. You could see the toll, but he never gave in. His last scene came just before surgery. He sipped his awful coffee and made one final joke. It was quiet, devastating. When he passed away, the cast didn't try to replace him. Instead, they gathered to remember. No characters, no punchlines, just themselves. At the end of the tribute, they raised their mugs. It said more than any script ever could. And looming over it all was Danny Arnold, the show's brilliant, impossible creator. Arnold didn't just rewrite scripts, he rewrote the rules. Most sitcoms wrapped in a day. Arnold stretched that to 2, sometimes more. Scenes were rewritten mid-shoot. One episode started filming with only 6 pages. The network fumed. Budgets ballooned. Arnold didn't care. He wouldn't even let executives on set. He worked until his body gave out, literally. A heart attack didn't slow him down. Chaos followed him. But Barney Miller needed that chaos to become what it did. Somehow in the madness, the cast found ways to cope. Rituals were born. Cards during delays. Meals after wrap. Max Gale brought food from home to keep spirits alive. He and Linden, the only 2 with opening credits, often rallied the others. They weren't just co-workers, they were a makeshift family. By 1982, Barney Miller wrapped after a triumphant run. Hal Linden had his pick of roles. When he was offered the lead in St. Elsewhere, a gritty medical drama destined to become a landmark series, it seemed like the obvious next step. But Linden didn't even glance at the script. He declined without hesitation. After years of constant pressure, he craved peace. The role went to Ed Flanders. The show soared. 3 Emmy nominations followed. It launched Denzel Washington's career. A cultural shift unfolded, and Linden watched it happen from the sidelines. He tried to return. In 1986, Black's Magic paired him with Harry Morgan as a crime-solving magician and his con artist dad. The concept had spark, but fizzled quickly. Just 13 episodes. In 1992, Jack's Place cast him as a jazz musician running a cozy restaurant. A sweet idea. Gone after 18 episodes. 2 years later, The Boys Are Back came and went. Still, even when the spotlight dimmed, Hal Linden remained an icon to those who remembered the magic. Because sometimes, legacy isn't built on trophies or trending scripts. Sometimes, it's built on coffee mugs raised in silence, and the roles that linger in the hearts of those who watched. It's the kind of story Hollywood doesn't tell enough. One of quiet persistence, late-life resurgence, and a man who never let the spotlight define his worth. Hal Linden, now 93, didn't follow the fame playbook. After the end of Barney Miller, he struggled to find another hit. TV was evolving, and his style, gentle, dignified, deeply human, seemed out of step. But he wasn't chasing stardom anymore. He was chasing meaning. And at a time when most actors retire, Hal returned to his roots. Broadway welcomed him back in 2002, where he portrayed Herr Schultz in Cabaret. It was a role drenched in emotion, an aging man clinging to love while history turned against him. Audiences sat up. Critics raved. Hal hadn't lost his touch. He had only become more profound. Then came 2024. At an age when most fade quietly, Hal stepped into the journals of Adam and Eve, standing opposite Sally Struthers. They played aging souls reflecting on love and mortality. His performance was riveting. There's something rare in watching a nonagenarian command the stage with humor, honesty, and spark. The applause wasn't just respect, it was awe, and he never gave up on music. In 2011, at age 80, Hal finally released It's Never Too Late, a jazz album decades in the making. He sang like he was born in a smoky 1950s club, backed by lush brass and rich rhythm. He toured Florida, performing up to 28 shows a year. That album wasn't just a musical debut. It was a life statement. He wasn't done yet. In one of his last film appearances, Hal took a small role in Netflix's You People. His character, Mr. Greenwald, wasn't flashy, but the casting was symbolic. Hal embracing stories of generational shifts, race, identity, and uncomfortable truths. Even now, he's a man unafraid to show up and listen. But behind the curtain was a more intimate legacy. His marriage to Frances, spanning 52 years, was his anchor. They met during a summer production in the 50s, and she gave up her dancing career to raise their 4 children. The early years were hard. Hal often worked as an understudy, barely scraping by. Frances stood by him, weathering the lean years before Barney Miller changed everything. When she passed in 2010, Hal lost more than a partner. He lost the person who believed in him when no one else did. He still speaks of her with trembling reverence. Their kids, Nora, Ian, Jennifer, and Amelia, remained close. Despite the 14-hour days on set and missed birthdays, Hal kept the emotional lines open. He once joked that since they still invited him over for dinner, he must have done okay. He even admitted something rare for a celebrity: regret. Choosing TV over Broadway was a quick decision that shaped not just his career, but his family's rhythm. That honesty hits hard. One moment you're playing a beloved sitcom captain. The next, you're looking back, asking, "Did I do enough?" For Hal, the answer comes not from box office returns, but from the quiet loyalty of family, fans, and fellow actors. He wasn't the only one from the cast who left a mark. Ron Glass had that unshakable calm. As Detective Harris, he was sharp and quietly ambitious, always polishing his novel between arrests. But when he re-emerged years later in Firefly, as the mysterious Shepherd book, a new generation discovered his layered depth. Even after his passing in 2016, fans still quote his soft-spoken wisdom. It's the kind of performance that lingers, elegant, restrained, unforgettable. Then there was Abe Vigoda. Hollywood accidentally buried him twice before it actually happened. In 1982, People magazine declared him dead. Abe, alive and bemused, ran with it, posing for photos mid-jog, even lounging in a coffin while holding the headline that had written him off. A website was launched just to confirm if he was still breathing. That kind of humor made him a cult figure. He passed for real in 2016, at 94, and somehow, it still felt like a joke. His story teaches one powerful truth: legacy isn't about the last show you headline. It's about showing up, again and again, even when no one's watching. That's how Hal Linden became unforgettable. From Broadway legends to beloved sitcom icons, these stars gave us heart, humor, and history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Because the next chapter of Hollywood's untold stories is just getting started.